Hey again. All right, so we are continuing our march toward 1800, toward the time when things start to change in a huge way in people's lives that gets them to really start noticing that there's this thing called society that has a huge influence on them. Last time we talked about John Locke and how he changes the world, literally changes the world in terms of creating this idea of political liberalism. Today we're going to talk about Adam Smith and his change of the world, arguably even a bigger deal, as he changed our way of getting the things that we need to survive to a market economy. So Adam Smith, nowadays Adam Smith is sort of, so he writes a book called The Wealth of Nations in 1776, and it is right now kind of used by a lot of people to justify inequality. And Adam Smith certainly said that competition, in fact, you can see it up here, the competition, which means that some people are going to win and some people are going to lose, is better for a society than not competing. But before we get into the specifics of his ideas, I want to point out that his book is called An Inquiry into and the Wealth of Nations. The idea of the wealth of nations is something that you can really easily sort of slip by, but what it's suggesting is this is going to be good for everybody. Remember, in feudalism, everything is oriented toward the people up the chain, the king, the nobility above them. Peasants didn't expect that their life was going to be better. They didn't expect that wealth was going to come their way. Adam Smith, even though what he has done is going to lead to capitalism, it's going to lead to a lot of suffering, his idea is that if we put in this system that's going to contain these elements, and I'll explain them all, if we do this, it's going to raise the standard of living for everybody. Sure, some people are going to get rich, but everybody will benefit. So Adam Smith is not trying to be cold and callous. He's trying to come up with a realistic system based on science that's going to work for everybody. All right. So what does it have going for it? To begin with, as I said, he wants to organize the economy around what's going to be good for everybody in the nation. Here's his reasoning. He starts out with human nature. Again, he is thinking in the same way that John Locke is, that I want to be as scientific about this as I possibly can. So he says, well, what is human nature? In his opinion, and this part is not super sciencey, but it's kind of a break at 1776. He said, humans have this natural propensity to truck, barter, and exchange. It's a direct quote. I looked up truck, and it basically means barter or exchange. So this kind of means barter or exchange, barter and exchange. What he's talking about is that people want to trade, that is human nature. Now, there's an argument that that's not really true, but we just got to learn what Adam Smith had to say. So he says, let's then build an economy based on that. And again, it's radically different than this feudal idea of a peasant is going to grow a bunch of food and just give it away to the vassal whose land he's working, who will then give it to the feudal lord whose land he's renting. So he's at least trying to base it on nature. He says that this idea of all of us exchanging is going to lead to a division of labor. I will be good at some things, you will be good at other things, we will specialize. So I maybe am really good at growing carrots, and you're maybe really good at, I don't know, what do you grow? Something else. Beans. You grow beans. And so we can exchange it, and we've both specialized. And there's somebody else who's really good at making the tools that we need, hoes or whatever. And so we can exchange with that person. I'll give them some carrots, and they'll give me a hoe, and it'll make it easier for me to grow my carrots. All right, that's the division of labor. Now here is where we're going to go away a little bit from human nature, and this is where Adam Smith is going to say this is how we want to encourage things to go in a way that will bring about wealth. He said, what we need to encourage is competition. Competition, he says, will deepen the division of labor. It will lead to increased productivity because, I mean, that kind of makes sense. If I'm competing with the carrot farmer down the way and they're going to make more money, I'm going to find a way to either grow better carrots, sell them at a cheaper price, or whatever. And you can see by that that idea of competition entering in, all of a sudden it becomes better for the consumer. They get either cheaper carrots or they get better tasting carrots. God only knows why I started with carrots. I wasn't planning on that when I started this lecture. So the deepening of the division of labor under competition is going to lead to greater productivity. It's going to lead to not just cheaper and better tasting carrots, but it's also going to allow somebody to think, well, you know, that hoe idea is pretty good, but if I could create something that would allow this carrot farmer to be able to grow carrots without having to work that hard, I could sell that to all the carrot farmers. And then all of a sudden we get more kinds of products, more kinds of services. That's where competition is. Adam Smith says that in order for this to happen, we need to keep the government out. This is all, remember, based on this natural human propensity to barter and exchange. So he's saying, keep the government out of it. What has come to be known as laissez-faire economics, as little government regulation as possible. And then he says the result of this, the result of just this very simple kind of logical syllogism, start out with human nature, watch what it develops into, encourage competition. What we end up is the invisible hand. And the invisible hand idea is the idea that by me pursuing my rational self-interest, by me trying to get myself rich selling carrots, what ends up happening is it benefits the rest of society. The more we specialize, the more we compete, the better products there are for consumers. And if I become a successful carrot farmer, I can maybe employ some other people. And so all of a sudden there are more jobs that exist and other people can make money. So he says that by everybody pursuing what's best for them as an individual, remember, importantly, in Adam Smith's sort of, in his system, government is not stepping in to solve problems and make people's lives better. He's saying, just let people do what they do and things will get better, and the general welfare will be benefited as though by an invisible hand. That idea of an invisible hand is kind of a famous Adam Smith quote. Okay, so that's our Adam Smith system. What's important to realize is that, so this is basically classical capitalistic economics. He wasn't naive. He realized that as soon as we get this going, businessmen are going to try to cheat. Of course they are. They've been told, go ahead and try to benefit yourself as much as you can, and that will be good for society. So yeah, of course I'm going to try to cheat. I'm going to get together with the carrot farmer down the road and say, hey, let's not undercut our prices. Let's keep our prices at a certain level. And that's not good for the consumers, but it's good for me. And I've been told if I'm working hard, it's going to be good for society. So he was aware that businessmen were going to try to either cheat the system or rationalize to themselves that, well, I'm getting rich, and so therefore it must be good because Adam Smith said there's an invisible hand. Yeah. That's it. That's Adam Smith for us. What it adds up to, though, and again, we live in a world where, of course, all this happens. Of course, people are getting different jobs and they're competing with each other. Of course they are. And of course they're pursuing their own self-interest in doing that. We take that for granted. Remember feudalism. That's not how feudalism worked. Peasants weren't competing with each other. They were cooperatively farming and giving stuff away to the person who owned the land. That's not capitalism. That's not competition. What Adam Smith does is just in the same way that John Locke did it for government, he created the world that we take for granted. But it wasn't that way. Adam Smith writes his book in 1776. again, before the year 1800. Everything was different then than it is now. And that 1800, again, we're getting closer and closer. That is going to be the pivotal time where Locke and Adam Smith's sort of experiments get unleashed on the world, and we'll see what happens. Right now, to end this video, I want to focus on this idea of market economy. And I want to stress these 3 ideas about it. So a market economy changes our ideas about what gets produced, about how it gets produced, and about how it gets distributed. Any economy, from hunter-gatherer to agricultural to market, answers those 3 questions in a different way. Hunter-gatherers, what got produced was whatever was going to keep them alive that day. How it got produced was generally a gendered division of labor where men went out and hunted and women gathered plants to eat. And how it got distributed was pretty much equally. Now, I'm not saying that that's better. You could get taken out by a lion. Like, hunter-gatherer life wasn't easy. The point I'm making is that Adam Smith's market economy answers those 3 questions in a really, really different way that's going to have some consequences that even he may not have expected. First of all, what gets produced? It isn't what's good for people. It's whatever will earn a profit. You go to the supermarket, and most of what you see is junk that isn't good for you. It's not, if we were designing a system that was going to provide what was good for us, a market economy is not going to do that. It produces some stuff that's good for us. It also produces all kinds of junk that is going to kill us. So what gets produced is whatever will earn a profit. If people will buy it, it's going to get produced. How it gets produced, the second question, is not in a way that's good for people. It's in whatever way is going to generate a profit. We'll talk about this a little bit more when we talk about Karl Marx, but the way capitalism works is generally horrible for workers. Workers don't get to work in the way they want. Their jobs are often lousy. I've worked on an assembly line. It's horrible. There's nothing good about it. So how it gets produced wasn't about me and my happiness, my fulfillment. It was about whatever was going to generate profit. Things will get made. How it will get produced is in whatever way is going to generate the most profit. Third, how it gets distributed. The stuff that we make doesn't go to who needs it. It goes to who can pay for it. We are the richest country in the world. We're the richest country that's ever existed. 1 in 5 kids doesn't have enough to eat. That is not because people are mean. That's because we have a market economy. The market economy says compete to make money. It doesn't say create stuff and give it away to the people who need it. It says create things and give it away to the people who will allow you to generate a profit. Again, that's Adam Smith's idea here is not to just let people die. His idea is to change things in a more rational way from what they had been before. And he succeeds at that. But there are consequences way beyond what he probably is expecting. And he was a smart guy. He was expecting businessmen to cheat. So he had a sense of it. Taken all together, those big changes that I said that we can think of as the way a market economy works. A historian named Karl Polanyi wrote a whole book about it. And the book was called The Great Transformation. It's a fantastic book. In which he said that in following Adam Smith down this road, we change existence for human beings in such a big way that he titled his book The Great Transformation. Our patterns of life are never going to be the same once we enter into this market economy. Okay, and so that, I believe, is going to bring us to the year 1800. We're going to talk about, in the next video, we're going to talk about the world that John Locke and Adam Smith kind of laid out for us, what ends up happening, how things kind of go crazy, and why then all of a sudden people start thinking, you know, we should be studying this because things aren't working the way we were told they were going to. All right, I will see you in that video.